Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got a couple of these MinisForums PCs here. Here's one of them, I've got another one in the box, and they both won't power on. They were part of a set of them, and a customer came back after like a power failure or something like that and found that neither of these two would turn on. I'm pretty sure that these are going to have like bad capacitor in or something like that. We've seen this with MinisForums before. They're basically little laptops, and like with all laptops, they can suffer the classic capacitor issues. So I think we're going to have a fairly straightforward short circuit in here. If I plug in some power, so I've got a DC power cable here connected to my Paul Daniels USB meter. So at the moment it's showing 20 volts because I've got just a 20 volt DC line here. But if I plug it in, bam, my power supply just immediately cuts out. It bounced back when I unplugged it there, but the fact that it immediately cuts out almost certainly means that we've got a main rail short on this. So let's get this thing apart and see what's involved. The top part pops off on this, and that gives you some access to get to like memory and the storage and stuff. Hey, it's got a natty little cooler on the SSD. But I think we're going to need to get the motherboard out of this. So let's zap out the screws on the bottom and go deeper. There's the hot side. Needs a good dust out as well. Then it looks like we've got 4 screws, and then the board will lift out from this side. Is this a 2-board design or is it 1 board? I think it's a single board, yeah. Sometimes these mini PCs are an absolute animal to disassemble. The initial remove cover is very easy to do, but if you actually need to get the motherboard out to do any major repair work, that's where the horror starts. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case with this one, especially because I've got 2 of the damn things. We need to steer the ports out from the surround is the tough bit. I think that side out is the most likely. So I'm going to try giving this a gentle pry. Do I need to take... Yeah, okay, let's take the CPU cooler off. Sheesh. This thing is cemented on. It suddenly occurred to me that there's a non-zero chance that this is liquid metalled. There it goes. No, it is. It's liquid metal. Okay, fine. That's alright. We can replace liquid metal. There's hardly any of it there, which is interesting. That's a really, really mean amount of liquid metal. Alright, does this get the board to come out? Yes, it does. Alright. Good grief. Right. I'll disconnect the BIOS battery just so it's not in my way. Right, there's our DC jack. Can we remove this VRM heatsink? This sticky pad has come apart slightly. It'll be okay. It's just annoying. At long last, let's take some measurements. So I've put my multimeter into resistance mode. I'll put my black probe on a screw hole. Actually, I'll put it on this USB port. That'll do. And I'm going to probe the positive pin of the DC jack. And that's not shorted. Okay. Let's jump under the microscope on the DC input area and see what else is going on there. So here's the DC jack. There's the positive pin. And so just one more time, if we just go on to ground and positive, we see kilo ohms of resistance, 60 kilo ohms. So that's about standard. We've got a little TVS diode there, and we've got a DC in MOSFET here. So let's go through the DC in MOSFET, and that output is shorted there. What are we going into here? We're going into this big section. Okay, so we're shorted here. We're shorted here. We're not shorted here. And we're not shorted here. So these are MOSFETs, and I would say we've got at least one DC in MOSFET here. I'm not sure what this set of 4 is forming. This might be to do with Type C power. However, I'm kind of flying blind here. I'm just stabbing and looking for low resistance. Let's go deeper into the board. If we come down here, this is CPU V core here. So we've got a row of all of these MOSFETs that then go through and eventually end up in the CPU. So we can measure the inputs of these and see what's going on. So if we check our V core, we see 73 ohms there, which is normal. So the CPU has a weird low resistance, but not zero. Now these two will probably be the low side, so this will probably be ground. Yeah, that's reading 0. So that, I think that, oh, these two are our low sides. So these two are the low sides that are taking the this is the output here. So these two are the low sides going down to ground, so this is our high side. So that should be our main rail, which is also reading 0. Okay, and that should be like 70, yeah. Okay, so yeah, we do have a main rail short. I'm just not sure what's going on exactly with these two guys here. However, we have identified a main rail short. It's not, so we have a main rail short, it's not our CPU. I'm going to check the secondary power supplies. If I turn the board around and I go up here, we've got some more inductors here. We've got this guy here, and we've got another guy up here. So we'll just quickly buzz these guys out and see if there's anything suspicious. So this one, 200 ohms, okay. Another little one there. 63, it's fine. I'm looking for 0, basically. We're looking to see if any of these secondary rails are shorted that would indicate another short circuit on a secondary rail that is dragging down the main rail. Kilo ohms. Kilo ohms, yeah. Okay, it looks like we can go for a voltage stab. I think I'm going straight to injection. Let's do it. Okay. All right. Power supply is set to 1 volt and 3 amps. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to stab. I'm going to turn the board around. So this is our DC in up here. which is where I was measuring, and I'm going to stab the shorted point there because it's easy to get to. And I'm going to point my Infrared P2 Pro thermal camera at the board, and we're going to see what gets hot. Right, and I'm going to stab the high side MOSFET input there. And we've got an orange spot down here. I think that's something on the other side of the board. Let's flip that over. I bet it's one of these guys. No, those are on VCore, I think. Alright, excuse me not making the multimeter visible, but I'm just going to check that I'm stabbing in the right place because this feels wonky. So let's find an actual ground. So here's a real ground on the back of that capacitor. That capacitor reads high resistance. That current sense resistor reads 0. So that will also be, that's 0. And that is 0. So we have got our shorted area here. There it is. There's our flare. Right, hold on. Okay, right, I see where I've been going wrong. However, let's just narrow that down. There. There's our guy. Okay, so I was misreading the board here. I was looking on the back here, and this is the back of CPU VCore. And let me come under the microscope and just show you where I was going wrong while trying to stab there. Definitely a trap for me, a young player here. So I was stabbing on this side here, because I was like, well, there's the current sense resistor. However, this is actually a ground plane, and when I touched on this side, that was the actual main rail. So I think this current sense resistor is actually sensing on the negative side, and that's where I was going wrong. So someone in the comments will probably be like, yeah, duh, but yeah, so bleh. So yeah, I touched there, and the guy that heated up was third one along, that guy there. And as you can see, that guy's actually standing out a little bit. It's probably standing out more now that I've cooked it with current injection. Can we see a crack in the side of you? Yeah, I'd call that a crack. It certainly doesn't look happy. Right, let's get this chap off the board, and I'm going to remove the other one next to it as well so we can measure it and find out what it is. I'm going to guess it's 10 microfarad. I don't think those are going to be 22s. I'm hoping they're not 22s because they're pretty small. And 22 microfarad capacitors in that size are annoying. I'm going to use my secure HT140 hot tweezers for this job, because that'll mean I won't have to get in there with hot air. Fairly big power planes there, so I might struggle a little bit, but let's try it out. I'm going to wet the joins first, and then we'll try and take them off for real. So let's just touch the edges of those. There's one side. Whoops. There's the other side. Come on. Come on. Budge off. There we go. And there's the other. And let's just see if we can get a quick read on this guy without sending it into the stratosphere. Yeah, there we go. 9.7 UF. That's 9.6 microfarads. So that's a 10 microfarad capacitor. And this one, I mean, we don't need to test it, but just for good measure, if we stick the probes on that in resistance mode, we should see 0. There you go. Whoops, and it's gone. And I'm not going to bother looking for it because the phone is ringing. Let's put a splot of flux on that. That's a lot of flux, actually. We don't need that much. Contrary to popular belief. Okay, that's fine. I was trying to suck some up with the syringe. All right, and here is a new capacitor. So the capacitors I've got are slightly bigger, but that's not a bad thing, to be honest. They're probably a little bit more rugged than these ones. So let's get this guy in place. There we go. That's you in place. So now we've done that, I'll just quickly clean that up and we'll take some measurements where we were previously looking, and we should find that our short circuit is gone. Bit of alcohol. Where's my toothbrush? I've got to clean my workbench, man. I've got so much clutter on my workbench and it just makes everything harder. I'm not a tidy freak by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to have a minimum amount of... You've got to have a minimum standard to how clear your workspace is. Otherwise, you can just never find anything. There we go. So flipping the board over, here we are back at the DC in jack. So let's take some measurements where we were initially looking again. So black probe on a ground point, and previously we were seeing a short circuit here, and that's now high resistance. Love it. And we're also seeing a short here. That's now high resistance as well. There we go. Good. So this guy should be absolutely fine now. So I'm going to get this reassembled, and I've got a little bit of I've got some more liquid metal, so I'm going to top that up because there really is the bare minimum there. I mean, I guess it was probably working, but wow, they're really putting a small amount there. If my memory serves me, at some point MinisForum were having problems with their liquid metal solution, particularly with it leaking out, I think. So yeah, I don't know if their solution to that was just to use the least amount possible, but I'm going to top that up anyway. Right, so I've got some thermal grizzly conductor knot here, and I'm just going to put the tiniest amount on there. There we go. So literally just a tiny amount, and that'll spread out. And in order to spread it, I'm just going to use a metal spatula here. And because we've already got some liquid metal here, that's moving around quite easily. Normally when you try and spread liquid metal, it will just keep balling up into a little glob, and you've got to just sort of keep mashing it until you break the surface tension and it starts to spread in a puddle like this. And I'm just going to carefully spread it across so we've got as much of a uniform puddle as possible. Oops. Sometimes you'll just get it wrong and go backwards. I'm not very good at liquid metal, but The results I do seem to be passable. Seems to work just fine afterwards, so... Ultimately, I don't like liquid metal. I don't think it should be used on production products. I think it's it's very good, but I think it's something that belongs on aftermarket, extreme overclocking and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know. Okay, that's the heatsink done as well. Let's put this chap back into the chassis. Oh, hecking camera, man. It's jumping again. I will sort this out at some point, folks. I'm sorry. Right, top cover, bottom cover. Which way around does this go? Got a notch there and a notch there. That goes that way around, I would say. Cool. All right. Now we plug it in and watch it not work. Right, so 20 volts. Plug it in. Good. All right, so we've got 130 milliamps of draw for standby. Let's try pushing the power button. There we go. We've got a power light, and we're now drawing 1.5 amps. Let me just grab a HDMI cable, and we'll see if there's output. Okay, the device is powered off again. Third time's the charm. There we go. All right, it's dropped into BIOS. Cool. All right. So there might be no software on that SSD because it's part of a set. It might be network booting. Who knows? That's none of my concern. The fact that the device powers on and goes into BIOS means that my job is done. All right, let's power that off. Nice. That's one fixed. So I've got a second one of these. So I'm going to pause for a sec and we'll get the second one out. Right, here is number 2. So let's pop off the top cover. Well, actually, let's plug it in first. So Paul Daniels' meter is on screen and I will plug it in and boop. Exactly the same deal. So, yeah, no spoiler, no prizes for guessing what the matter is here. What are the chances of getting in there without disassembly, I wonder? I'm going to be super cheeky with this one and see if I can do it in situ. So I'm going to pop out the memory and the... let's take out the... Try and get the CMOS out. We don't need to get the CMOS battery out. I'll just tuck that out the way around the back here. You can go back there for now. And I'm going to take out the SSD and the Wi-Fi card. Yeah, that's where we were working. So, what do you think the chances are that it's one of these ones again? In fact, I think I can see it. Wow, okay, hang on a sec. Let me swing in the microscope. Here we go. There you go. What are the chances that it's just that one? Pretty good, I would say. So, we might not even have to go in with the injection this time. So the customer tells me that apparently this is a known issue on this model of the MinisForum's PCs. they said there was a known capacitor defect. Maybe they bought a batch of crap capacitors or what, I don't know. But yeah, is it exactly the same one as well? It is... No, this one is on the 4th VRM down, but still. So let's put my black probe onto a screw hole, and we'll just check both sides of that. So that's reading 0, and that's reading 0. So yeah, we do have a main rail short here, and I'm just going to take that off the board. So let's warm up the hot tweezers, and let's just see if it's that simple. Can I get in there? Yeah, I can get in there with the hot tweezers. Delightful. Wet that side, and wet that side. There we go. Bit of extra solder there. Just get some more thermal mass in. There we go. And our survey says... Black probe on screw hole. Right, that side is ground. Oops. Yeah, and this side is no longer ground. Wonderful. All right. Now, at this point, there is a pretty... Lots of people are just like, oh, why don't you change all of the capacitors and stuff? No capacitor, no problem, yada, yada, yada. Now, there's a strong argument to be made that I should replace all of the 10 microfarad capacitors here. But the problem is just where am I going to stop at that point? Do we just replace every single capacitor in the device? I don't know, man. That's quite a lot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go with these repairs that I've done, and I'm going to say to the customer, if these ones go down again, then we'll just change all of the 10 nanofarads on all of the VRMs and just go with that. However, let's just see how much we need to do first, and if it comes back in for a second repair, then we can talk about preventative maintenance, I would say. But I always say take a light touch the first time around and provide a warranty on your work, and then if it comes back in, then you get heavy-handed. I very rarely have stuff come back in a second time. It does happen now and then. There was a HP I did a while back where a second capacitor failed immediately after replacing one. Can you get flat on the board, please? That's not remotely flat. It's on, but it's... Come on. Alright, that'll do. Where was I? Yeah, there was one where... There was a HP where a second capacitor went literally just as I was testing after replacing the first one. And in addition to that, I had a Chromebook very recently where I replaced a capacitor. It wasn't a video, but I replaced a capacitor on the board, and it came back in about a month later with another capacitor very close to the one that I replaced, having failed. And at that point, I then replaced all of them in the bank. So that's kind of my policy at the moment, is you replace the stuff that's dead, and then if it comes back, then you go in heavy-handed and you just say, fine, we're changing all of the capacitors in that area. But yeah, that's the thing, is just, are we going to go and replace all of these guys? There's a lot of them, you know. Let's wait and see if we have to first. So let's see how we go. Right, I'm going to squirt a little bit of alcohol in there just to clean up my little flux patch. And let's put all this stuff back into place. Very glad I didn't have to disturb the liquid metal on this one. It's absolutely... It's not that bad dealing with liquid metal. It's just annoying. This was also just annoying to disassemble as well, so... HDMI. DC. Alright, and power supply has not cut out after plugging it in. Let's power it on. Boop. It's powered on. Blue light on the top there. Very nice. Doing a power cycle. These things are slow to ram train. The other one was as well, so I'm not fussed, but yeah. As I mentioned, these things are basically laptops, and laptops are kind of slow to ram train as well. A desktop computer will generally give you some output within 30 seconds tops, typically. If it hasn't given you a picture within 30 seconds, it's probably not going to. There are exceptions to that, but broadly speaking. Whereas, yeah, laptops, they will sometimes power cycle like 3 or 4 times and take a couple of minutes before they actually give you a picture. There we go. It's about to. Nope, power cycled again. Again, one of the nice things is because I'm running this from my Paul Daniels Type-C power meter here, we have a very clear look at what the device is doing. We can see when it's doing stuff and to what extent. There we go. Lovely. Ooh. All right, that's a double fix. These are both fixed. Thanks a lot for tuning in, everyone. I will see you all very soon. I'm going on holiday for a bit, so there'll be another gap before the next video, but see you soon. Bye.